Good afternoon. This is Robin Harvey, Chair, and I now call to order the September 16th, 2025 meeting of the Audit Committee of the Baltimore County Board of Education. In accordance with Board Policy 8311, the Chair of a committee, at their discretion and after consultation with the staff liaison, may convene an in-person committee meeting. Otherwise, all committee meetings will be held electronically. Today's Audit Committee meeting is being held virtually and broadcasted through Microsoft Teams. In order to conduct this meeting efficiently, all voting items this afternoon will be done by a roll call vote. Board members will say their names before making and seconding a motion as applicable, as well as when requesting discussion on an agenda item. As a courtesy to the committee, I ask that you inform Ms. Jamison or Ms. Barr if you must leave the call by using the Teams chat feature so that a quorum can be maintained. Ms. Jamison, please call the roll to determine the presence of a quorum of the committee.
Thank you, Ms. Harvey. I will start with Mr. Young.
Present.
Ms. Dominowski.
Present.
Ms. Frempong.
Present.
Mr. McMillian.
Present.
And Ms. Harvey.
Present.
Thank you.
A quorum being present, we will begin. Ms. Jamison, please call the roll of staff members participating in today's meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Harvey. I will start with Ms. Barr.
Present.
Ms. Manna.
Present.
Mr. Straight.
Present.
Ms. Sample.
Here.
Ms. Crew.
Present.
Ms. Smith. Mr. Tantliff.
Present.
Ms. Mustafer.
Present.
Thank you. Are there any other attendees present that I did not recognize? Hearing no additional names, I turn the meeting back to you, Ms. Harvey.
Thank you, Ms. Jamison. Good afternoon, everyone. As a reminder, if committee members have questions that are outside the scope of the reports presented this afternoon, please email Ms. Barr or myself with your questions. We will make sure there's follow-up with the appropriate individuals to get those answers back to you. We will begin with Ms. Crew. Please proceed with the student enrollment follow-up report.
Good evening. As mentioned, I was the senior auditor on this project, and I would like to thank Ms. Patricia Mustafer, the director of the Department of Student Support Services, for being here today. I'd also like to note that the audit report is posted on our website if you'd like to review it in more detail. In May of 2023, we issued the student enrollment process and data accuracy audit and identified 8 audit issues. Since the audit, the responsibilities of the student enrollment process transferred from the Department of Social Emotional Support within the Division of Curriculum and Instruction to the Department of Student Support Services within the Division of Schools. The objective of this follow-up was to determine if management's corrective action plan were implemented and if the issues were resolved. Of the prior 8 issues, 3 were resolved. System-wide training is now provided for newly hired enrollment liaisons. The presentation of student enrollment information on the BCPS website is now concise and user-friendly, and enrollment-related help desk requests are resolved timely. 5 of the issues were unresolved. For the first 3, in blue, the management correction action was implemented. However, the issue remained unresolved for the students tested in our follow-up. The required documentation according to Rule 5150 for newly enrolled students was not available. Shared domicile disclosure forms and renewals were not completed and approved according to Rule 5150. And data in focus was not accurate to identify special enrollment placement students. For the other 2, The management corrective action plan was partially implemented, and the issues remain unresolved for the students tested in the follow-up. Data in focus was not accurate or sufficient to identify special permission transfer students attending a school outside of their home school, and special permission transfers due to medical or student adjustments are not implemented or approved in accordance to Rule 5140. These results were communicated with Ms. Mustafa, the Director of the Department of Student Support Services, for any further corrective actions necessary. This concludes our presentation of the student enrollment process and data accuracy audit follow-up. At this time, I would like to offer Ms. Mustafa to comment as she would like. If not, I turn it back over to Ms. Harvey for the committee members' questions.
Thank you. Ms. Mustafa, do you have comments?
I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity in partnership with our Office of Internal Audit to really look at the rigor of our work and to continue to expand on opportunities for improvement. The guidance that was provided has offered us thoughts and ideas, considerations for next steps. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this item?
Ms. Harvey, I'm not sure if you can see, but Mr. Frempong and Mr. Young both have their hands raised.
Thank you, Ms. Barr. I was just searching for my chat and curious. Okay, Ms. Frempong, I see you have a 1 by your hand, so please proceed.
Thank you, Ms. Harvey. So the first question is, what is the difference between a special enrollment placement student, or what type of student is that? I understand a special permission transfer basically is saying that the student is not attending their zone school, and there's different reasons for that. But what is a special enrollment placement student?
Okay, so for special enrollment placements, they're normally the students that are placed there like under foster care, or they're living with somebody that is giving them permission to live there. They're not like shared domicile, but the state has given them approval for this child to live there. So it's not under a guardian, but situations like that. So they are the unique situations that the school approves students that are residing at locations that are not technically the guardians of the students to still attend Baltimore County schools.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. All right, and then so with the 5 unresolved audit issues, I guess what are the next steps? Because this is a follow-up as far as what the corrective action should be. So if I'm understanding, that means the audit was done, there were corrective actions that were supposed to take place, and then this is the follow-up to make sure those corrective actions have taken place. So is it my understanding that then these 5 issues out of the 8 that were identified are still unresolved and haven't been corrected per the corrective action issues?
Yes, these 5 have not been corrected. They did do, for 3 of them, have put in place everything that was initially planned in the management corrective action plan. But the circumstances still stand. For the other 2, they were mainly implemented. There was mainly 1 item for each of them outstanding, but they still remained unresolved. At this point, the information was passed back to Ms. Mustafa, and it's on them to determine what additional steps are necessary. There were a lot of changes in management during this time period. So I know for her, she's been jumping in, trying to do everything at this point to correct these, even though she's only been overseeing this area for about a year now.
Right, and that was going to be my next question. I know Ms. Mustafa has not been in this position long, so I didn't know if the audit was done under when she was actually the person or not. So I guess also then, so what, I guess, are the next steps so that we make sure that, again, for reporting, these issues get resolved, and also that we are made aware of that these have been resolved.
At this point, Bard, I believe at this point we are done with the follow-up. It's up to Bar, I guess, to Ms. Barr to determine that.
Right, and I would have to defer actually to Ms. Mustafer to see where she is in the process for developing some additional corrective action. Of course, we would work with her if there was something that she wanted us to review that has been put in place, something different that we reviewed. So I don't know, Ms. Mustafer, do you have any comments related to this?
Yes, so the unresolved errors or the unresolved areas, we will be taking that back and we will be going through that again to really look at the corrective actions that were offered, but then to adjust those corrective actions. And I know that in working directly with the audit, it's recording of information and information being available. So we continue to train, but we may need to do in examining the feedback, do further training about information being retained, but also being recorded in focus. That was another area of concern. So there's an additional layer of training and checks and balances as well.
Thank you, Ms. Mustafer.
Okay.
And Ms. Frimpong, did you have another question?
I guess I do in a comment, and I'm not sure then again how this gets resolved on. I guess what I'm looking for is I'd like to see, I guess if there's an opportunity to come back and hear the information about at a later date about how these 5 that are unresolved have been resolved. And I don't know what the process is to do that, but I would ask that, I guess, I don't know if that's a later conversation, but I'm just uncomfortable just kind of leaving it like this and then saying that that's it. So I just want to make sure that we have something in place so that we're able to come back, look at this and see that those 5 things that have been unresolved are resolved. Again, giving Ms. Mustafer the time that she needs, but I do think we need another follow-up on this.
Ms. Barr, as a matter of
Yeah.
course, when you have unresolved issues, can you just explain to us and to the public how that's handled by your office, please?
Sure. Typically, we do not do follow-ups to follow-ups to follow-ups. We do turn it back over to management for resolution, and or management could make a decision to just continue to work knowing that there's a risk and they accept the risk involved with it. But because Ms. Mustafer is new and she's working to try to resolve some of these things, and she mentioned, additional training is needed, further training is needed, things of that nature, and the concerns being presented by audit committee membership, it is something that we can work with Ms. Mustafer on, like Ms. Frempong indicated, to give her some time to put new things in place, and then we can circle back with her and do a double check just to make sure things are operating the way that they should.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Young, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Barr has answered my questions as far as what the process is as far as any, additional follow-up. So I have no additional questions. Thank you, Ms. Barr. Thank you, Ms. Crew, for that. And thank you, Ms. Mustafer.
Great, thank you. I do have one question. Oftentimes when we find that we were unable to resolve an issue, or that operationally an issue was not able to be resolved, one of the things that I am curious about is the intervals in which the system checked in and did some quality assurance and reviews around the effectiveness of the corrective action that was being implemented. Ms. Mustafer, I know that you are new, but if you have any insight into that, I would appreciate it. And can you speak about, have you had discussions about what that interval might look like, so that we're not a year in and then saying, oh, we weren't able to resolve that issue, as opposed to saying maybe we're 3 months in and we see we need to make some adjustments. So can you speak to that, please?
Certainly. So we did, in working with internal audit, we did talk about the possibility of what that looks like. Also, during this process, we did implement internal quality assurance, if you will, where we were actually engaged in working with schools to audit this information and identify discrepancies, but also work to partner to resolve areas of concern in alignment with the audit. So that is not a process that will go away. We will continue that. And have continued to start the school year. So I just want to elevate that that is one thing that we put in place mid last year. So we are going to be continuing to work on that. And then we have had discussions about what further training could look like, especially around our special enrollments in all of the 5 areas, and certainly not losing sight on all 8 areas. We don't want to gain and then lose momentum in the other areas that we've met with success in. So that's the process. I'm hoping I'm answering your question. And if more information is needed, please feel free.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Barr, for offering to do an additional follow-up based on the circumstances. If there are no
Certainly.
further, thank you. If there are no further questions or discussion items, Ms. Crew, would you please proceed with the School Activity Fund 3-year cash analysis report?
Thank you. I was a senior auditor on this project as well. We conducted a 3-year cash analysis of year-end balances at every school to identify schools with significant changes, including relevant data analytics. To begin, we'll quickly review the background information. The purpose of school activities funds is to promote the general welfare of all students and facilitate the normal extracurricular activities of the school. The principal at each school is directly responsible for the administration and accounting of the school activity funds. The Department of Schools, specifically the assigned executive director, works in collaboration with the school principals. SAF accounting staff within the Department of Fiscal Services provides training and support to all school staff regarding student activity funds. Board Policy and Superintendent's Rule 3125 provides guidance over student activity funds. We analyzed all 173 schools and identified those schools that had a cash variance of plus or minus $15,000 and a percentage variance of plus or minus 50% for additional review. Our review determined the reason for the variance and whether the change was in accordance with SAF guidelines. Of the 173 schools analyzed, an additional review was completed on 15 schools. We determined that the change at 7 of the schools were in accordance with the SAF guidelines. However, we identified issues at the other 8 schools. 1 school had both idle funds and an overdue BCPS payable. 2 schools had an overdue BCPS payable, and 5 schools had idle funds. Details of these results were shared with the Chief of Schools to discuss with the applicable executive directors, as well as with the Office of SAF and Fiscal Services, to assist the school's fiscal assistants and secretaries with addressing the idle funds and the funds owed to BCPS at the 8 schools. Presented on the screen is the average year-end balance by type chart completed as part of the data analytics. The ending average balance by type of school per fiscal year have fluctuated, with high schools having the largest average year-end balance with a range from $87,309 to $92,349. High schools have larger balances than other types of schools with more normal extracurricular activities such as athletics, class accounts, performing arts, clubs, and scholarships. Additional data analytic charts are provided in the report. This concludes the presentation on the FY 2026 Student Activity Funds 3-year cash analysis audit. I turn it back to you, Ms. Harvey, for committee member questions.
Are there any questions? Ms. Frimpong, please proceed.
Thank you. My question, I guess, and this is more maybe something for us to think about as a committee. We do have the policy in place that specifically policy and rule 3125 that specifically speaks to school activity funds. But I guess my question or thought is, do we need maybe more detail or information specifically relating to high school because of the increased amount of funds that are dealt with in high school from athletic, performing arts, scholarship, et cetera. So just wondering if maybe we might need some more guidance or guardrails when it comes to high school because of the larger amount of money.
Thank you, Ms. Frimpong. Ms. Barr or team, was there any discussion or feedback to the system regarding Ms. Frimpong's question with oversight? And Ms. Manna, I see your hand.
I was just going to project and say that there is an SAF manual that does have a lot more information related to school activity funds. It's primarily in use for the school bookkeepers, the fiscal assistants, and the administrative secretaries that handle the funds at the schools. But there is a lot more information, and particularly related to the high school related funds in this manual that they use. Maybe that's something we can share at a future meeting with you.
Great.
And
Thank you.
I would also ask Mr. Tantliff if he would like to add anything.
No, nothing to add.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, Ms. Harvey, we did do a review actually of the SAF accounting manual. Ms. Jamison did that, and there were very minor findings related to that. I'm not sure if you'll recall that we did a report on that last year.
Yes.
And things have they address all those issues.
Okay, so it seems like we might want to look at the manual. Ms. Frimpong, do you think that might help gain some insight onto maybe what the differentiation is in terms of the increased funds at the high school level?
Yes, I think
starting there.
I think so. And then also like in our policies, we reference things, legal statutes, et cetera. So maybe that manual itself, I don't know if that would be something to consider referencing as well. But it sounds like there is something, but again, just so that we have that connection between what we have in place for our policies and guidelines and this process with the student activity funds, school activity funds.
Yes, I do believe that the policy references the manual, at least it used to.
Okay. Okay, so we will be able to get that manual so that the committee members can review it, Ms. Barr.
Yes, Ms. Mann or Ms. Jamison, are you aware? Is it available online or?
It is
I
available
believe
online.
so, but I'll have to double check. But
Okay,
I believe it is.
Okay, we'll
Okay.
follow up and get the link out to committee members.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Ms. Jamison, was that what I saw your hand briefly raise?
Yes, that was it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll move on to the next item, new business. Ms. Barr, would you please proceed with the overview of the Office of Internal Audit, the FY25 year-end updates, and the FY26 Provisional Audit Committee topics?
Yes,
Ms.
thank you.
Harvey, this is Board
Yes.
Member Frimpong. I'm sorry to interrupt, but just
Yeah.
real quick, because I wanted to pull up policy 3125 just to check to verify. And I'm not seeing it, and maybe I'm not sure of the correct name, But just, yeah, I think that is something to look at for policy 3125.
It,
Or is it going to
it
be in
might be in the
rule?
rule.
I see. Okay, got it. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. And we'll get you the link.
Thank you. Ms. Barr, would you please proceed?
Certainly. And good afternoon again, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to provide an overview of our office this afternoon for our new committee member and as a refresher for returning members. Welcome, Ms. Domnowski, our newest member. An internal audit office is particularly important for an organization the size of BCPS that has over 110 students, greater than 20,000 employees, and close to 200 schools and offices. Therefore, the Board of Education, or BOE, Office of Internal Audit, was created to enhance and protect organizational value by providing risk-based and objective assurance, advice, and insight. Next slide, please. This overview addresses the purpose of our office, the standards and best practices that we follow, how our independence is achieved, a little bit about our staff, and our work plan and reporting processes. Next slide, please. We follow the profession's Institute of Internal Auditors International Professional Practices Framework, or Red Book, that defines internal auditing as an independent, objective assurance and consulting activity designed to add value and improve an organization's operations. Consequently, in the completion of our audit activities, we strive to assist the BOE and BCPS to accomplish its objectives by bringing a systematic, disciplined approach to evaluate and improve the effectiveness of risk management, control, and governance processes. Additionally, we have adopted the Red Book Code of Ethics and apply and uphold the principles of integrity, objectivity, confidentiality, and competency as defined in Red Book's Rules of Conduct. In addition to following Red Book, we followed the guidance suggested by the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, or the ACFE, in the administration of the BOE Fraud, Waste, and Abuse Hotline, as well as the completion of any investigations related to fraud, waste, or abuse. Additionally, we have established and maintained collaborative and professional relationships with BCPS executive and mid-level management and various staff, as well as with a variety of external agencies that are important and critical to the BOE and BCPS. The State of Maryland Office of the Inspector General for Education, the State of Maryland Office of the Legislative Auditors, the State of Maryland State Aid Auditors, the Baltimore County Office of the State's Attorney, the Baltimore County Auditor's Office, Clifton Larson Allen, the BOE External Audit Firm, the DC Maryland Virginia Audit Group, and the Maryland LEA Audit Group, which runs through MABE. These state and local agencies, as well as the external auditors, rely on the audits and investigations that we do. They have referred cases to our office that have come through their hotlines, and we have completed investigations on their behalf. At their request, we have also cooperated with their audit and investigatory processes and assisted them as appropriate. Conversely, we can seek advice from these agencies when needed to ensure that we are using best practices in the completion of our work plan, audits, and investigations. I wanted to point out that the audit groups allow for a variety of staff development activities and peer-to-peer conversations about best practices. Our participation in these groups has led to frequent contact from other LEAs for information about a variety of our processes, including but not limited to our audit programs, risk assessments, and work plan. We are often asked to present at these meetings and are recognized as a model internal audit shop in Maryland. Next slide, please. As stated in Red Book, and this is a quote, internal audit activity must be independent and report to a level within the organization and is achieved when the chief audit executive reports functionally to the board, end quote. We have met this requirement as noted in Policy 8400, Office of Internal Audit, that established our role, internal audit standards, authority, organization structure, independence, responsibility, work plan requirements, and reporting and monitoring responsibilities. As you can see by this organization chart that is published out on the website, we do report directly to the Board of Education and through this board's audit committee. Other policies related to our office are Policy 8410, reporting fraud, waste, abuse, or unlawful acts, Policy 8420, anti-retaliation, and 8430, Audit Committee. Staff qualifications, I wanted to point out that the combined years of our qualifications in the audit industry is close to 200 years. And additionally, the 7 current members in the office hold a variety of certifications and must meet the continuing professional education requirements to maintain these active certifications. Certified fraud examiners, 6 of us hold this certification. Certified risk-based internal auditors, 4 hold this certification. Certified government auditing professional, 4 hold this certification. Certified internal auditor, 3 hold this certification. Certified public accountant, 2 hold this certification, and 1 holds a certified business manager certification. Also, 4 of our members of the office have Master of Science degrees, a Master of Science in Education, a Master of Public Administration, a Master of Science Management Accounting, and a Master of Science in Accounting. Next slide, please. Policy 8400 indicates that we are responsible to develop and create an annual risk-based work plan that is first presented to the audit committee for its review, discussion, and approval, and then to the full board for final review, discussion, and approval. The development of our work plan requires our interaction with members of BCPS executive level management that includes but is not limited to the superintendent and her cabinet, as well as other management and supervisory levels, and the direct process owners. Information gathered from these sources is considered and weighted to identify areas of high, medium, and low risk to BCPS at the time the plan is developed. Additional factors such as identified patterns of behaviors noted in reported hotline allegations, survey results, deferred projects, and available resource hours are also considered in the final development of our annual risk-based work plan. And I want to point out and make sure that it's clear, since it is risk-based, the annual work plan can be adjusted at any time throughout the year to address emerging risks or other unplanned projects that are deemed necessary. Case in point, we'll be following up on the student enrollment. Additionally, our work plan includes the administration of the board's fraud, waste, and abuse hotline. This responsibility was assigned to us in 2012 based on the recommendation of the board's external auditors. Therefore, our work plan includes hours for us to monitor the hotline and address all allegations that we receive. Keep in mind, our office only investigates matters related to fraud, waste, and abuse. Allegations other than these are management issues and are forwarded to the superintendent's office for review and proper disposition. Audits have identified significant issues in areas such as payroll, student enrollment, benefits, and transportation, and the reports have been posted to our website. Follow-ups are conducted to ensure corrective action has been implemented, and you heard an example of that this evening. Next slide, please. This next slide shows a 3 fiscal year summary of our investigations categorized by fraud, waste, and abuse. And I just want to call your attention that we did have to replace the heat map slide that was in prior to this because it was cut off and you really couldn't see all the information. So this is all the information that was on that slide, and we apologize for any inconvenience this may have caused you. The total cases by fiscal year 23, 24, and 25 for fraud were 11, 32, and 45 respectively. Waste cases were 3, 3, and 0 respectively, and abuse cases were 12, 30, and 23 respectively. The non-fraud, waste, and abuse item noted in fiscal year 24 had to be included as a reconciling item between management case and our cases that we kept in an internal audit. I want to point out that investigations have also identified significant issues such as payroll fraud, conflict of interest, and theft. And the Department of Human Resources sends a disposition for each and every case related to all investigation reports that we submit, whether it's substantiated, unsubstantiated, or inconclusive. And I want to take a moment to pause here because these work plan and investigation results, I want to create an awareness for the committee members and those who may be listening to our meeting about the Public Works report. The Office of Internal Audit rebuttal dated September 21, 2021 is posted to our website and indicates a flawed public works review process and inaccuracies about our office. Additionally, the board voted to reject the Public Works recommendation related to the Office of Internal Audit at its January 25, 2022 work session. This vote is also posted to our website. And lastly, as you can tell by these work plan results shown here tonight, the report is now outdated. Next slide, please. As mentioned, we follow applicable industry standards and best practices in the completion of our audits and investigations. Once the field work is complete, we issue reports to the appropriate individuals as noted on this slide. Audit reports are reviewed by the Office of Law to determine the need for redaction prior to posting to our website. Since fiscal year 21, all risk-based audit reports have been posted on our Office of Internal Audit website. And while our investigation reports are not currently posted to the website, we are open to exploring the possibility of making information available as allowable by law. We do post quarterly work plan and investigation updates to the website. And by comparison, I wanted to point out Anne Arundel County and Baltimore City do not appear to post any audit reports at all. And Prince George's County and Montgomery County appear to only post school activity fund audit reports. In addition to these written reports, monthly meetings are held at a minimum with the audit committee, the superintendent, the chief human resource officer, general counsel, and I do have to get Mr. Tantliff on the schedule, the new executive director for fiscal services. And information regarding the status of audit projects, audit results, and investigations as appropriate are discussed at these meetings. Ms. Harvey, this concludes the overview of the office. I can pause here for questions and comments, or it is a good segue into the FY25 quarterly updates, whatever you prefer.
Are there any points of discussion or questions regarding the overview that Ms. Barr just gave? Yeah, Mr. McMillian?
Thank you. Ms. Barr, would you clarify how many people were in your department, including yourself? I know at one point there were 10. You and 9 others. 2 individuals chose to leave on their own accord in the last year. So my understanding is that would have cut you down to you and 7 other people. Is there a hiring freeze? Is there an attempt to hire those 2 individuals? What's going on with the numbers in your department? Thank you.
Sure. We are down to 7 individuals. We had 2 individuals retire and 1 person moved on to other employment. My understanding is that 2 of the positions, as a result of the budgetary problems and issues in the school system in general, were taken from the office, and that I will be able to hire and replace one of the senior auditors. So currently we have 7, we have 6, and there's 1 vacancy, and 2 positions were removed from the office, the assistant chief auditor position and the audit manager position.
Now, Ms. Barr, I'm curious, who made those decisions to eliminate those 2 jobs? Because if I'm not mistaken, in your presentation, we talked about how the board sits underneath, your department, the audit, internal audit sits underneath the Board of Education, and it's not responsible back to the superintendent. So who made that decision?
I'm not sure who all was involved in the decision, Mr. McMillan. I was just notified that the positions were removed from the office with the exception of the senior auditor.
Miss Harvey, are you aware of who made that decision? Shouldn't that decision have come back to the Board of Education?
Ms. Harvey, quick clarification. Isn't it that the chief auditor, Ms. Barr, reports to the board? That's how the hierarchy works. And the rest of the employees are not direct board employees?
That is correct.
Yeah, so the way it
Mr.
was
McMillian, go ahead, Ms. Barr.
Yeah, the way it was explained to me, there is a hiring freeze. However, I am able to replace the senior auditor.
Okay, so to repeat, you've lost 2 positions in your department.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Ms. Harvey, what's being alluded to here? The fact that Ms. Barr is the only one responsible to us, and the other people are responsible to the superintendent. So that allowed those individuals to be cut.
So I'm not going to go with illusions. We can get a direct answer to your question. That is not an issue. But Ms. Barr is the board's employee. So we can look into the specifics of what you're asking and get you a response timely.
Okay, I'm curious. Were you aware that those 2 positions were cut, Ms. Harvey?
I believe if it was in the budget within the negotiations, we all should have been. And additionally, the operational piece of how employees are decisions around employees and positions is made is just that operational. So during the budgeting process, if there were concerns around which employees, which many of us expressed, questions about and had the opportunity to question and have answered, that would have been the time to do that. But we
Okay.
can get that clarification for you,
Okay,
Mr.
but
McMillian.
Ms.
No
Harvey,
problem.
Ms. Harvey, I ask you, were you aware that those 2 positions were cut as the chairman of the audit committee?
Mr. McMillian, this is my first meeting as the chair of the audit committee. I became the chair of the audit committee in July.
Okay,
And this
were
is
you
the first scheduled meeting.
Were you the vice chair before?
Yes.
And you're not. It
Mr.
seems
McMillian.
like you don't want to answer my question, but that's okay.
I'm sorry that you feel that way. I'm
Well,
not
then
sure.
answer
I'm
it.
not.
As the vice chair, were you aware that
Mr.
those cuts were
McMillian.
made?
Mr. McMillian,
Excuse me?
please maintain
I am
decorum.
maintained.
I appreciate
Please
that.
maintain. I
Thank
asked you
you.
a question.
I
As a vice
understand.
chair, were you aware that those 2 positions were cut?
Mr. McMillian, as a member of the committee, were you aware that those 2 positions
No, I
were
was
cut?
not. That's my point. But I'm not in a leadership role. Mr. Young, you asked me, I ask you back. Mr. Young, were you
I'm
aware?
going to ask, wait a minute, please, everyone. I'm going to ask everyone to pause. I'm going to provide an answer, a response to the question, and then we are going to move on to Ms. Dominowski, who's been patiently waiting with her hand raised.
Thank you.
You are asking, thank you. I will get the specifics, as I have said more than once, but what you are asking is a budget question, and budget issues were made available to all of the board in its entirety. Every department that has staff, and we had this discussion, I believe, around what positions may or may not be available for to be reduced because of the budget constraints. That was part of the budget discussion. However, I will get the answer to your specific question regarding the reporting structure of the Office of Internal Audit's staff. So thank you, Mr. McMillian.
Thank you.
Ms. Dominowski.
Yes, thank you. I just to follow up on Mr. McMillian really quickly, I just happened to have the newly adopted and printed 2026 budget that we were given, not at this past meeting, but the meeting before. And on page 136, under the internal audit, it still has 9 professional FTEs. So none of us knew that we were cut down to 7, just to quantify that. Also, Ms. Barr, who makes the decisions on which investigations to move forward, and how much of the results from those investigations are presented to either board members or the public at large?
Can I ask a clarifying question about the first part of your question?
Sure.
What do you mean about the investigations that move forward? We do have a triage process where we review every single allegation that comes into the hotline. And if the allegation is related to fraud, waste, or abuse, we keep that in our office and we conduct the investigation related to that. If the allegation is not related to fraud, waste, or abuse, that information is then forwarded to the office of the superintendent, who then makes the determination as to how and who should make that investigation, because they're typically management types of issues that we would not look into, or perhaps HR investigations would look into it if it was a matter of, say, an allegation related to substance abuse or something like that. We don't do that, so we turn those over. As far as information supplied to the public related to investigations, as I mentioned in my overview, right now we don't publish our investigation reports, but if this committee and the board want to have a conversation about moving ahead and looking forward to posting something on the website, we're not opposed to that as long as it's allowable by law and regulations and rules. So I hope that answered your question or questions.
Yeah, it just well, I mean, I'll probably follow up, and then when you go over the quarterly report, it's just
Okay.
we don't always see all the details of those, like as far as how much it affects the budget, or how much waste, fraud, and abuse, the dollar value of what
You're
those
right.
investigations
You're right.
came to.
You're right. You're right. You are right. It's very statistically based with respect to how many we do, what the results are, whether substantiated, unsubstantiated, or inconclusive, but we don't tie the dollars. You're right.
Okay.
On the report that we give. But I mean, that could be something that could be taken into consideration as well. And I did forget to respond to another part of your question. There are times in particular when we turn information over to the state's attorney's office, then I do communicate, or the audit committee officers communicate to the board related to that. But that would not be, if the investigation is still in process or in progress, it's very limited information that's allowed to be shared with the board. And also, we have to be very careful because those individuals could appeal. If we write a report and if there is a personnel action that causes them to lose their job, they have a right to appeal. So, and you all, as board members do hear those appeals. So we have to be very careful when we release information to the board and how much information is released, if that makes sense.
Yes, but it would be possible to leave all names out of the reports and just focus on the fiscal implications, correct?
Why would we want to leave I'm sorry to answer a question with a question. I don't think it makes sense to leave the names out of the report, because decision makers have to have all the raw data and information. If you're asking for a summary of information related to the fiscal impact based on an audit or an investigation that we've done, that's something different that I think is it's not identifying an individual or location of where some wrongdoing may have occurred. So again, if the committee wants to consider that, or the board wants to consider that, we can start tallying that up, if you will.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Dominowski, did you have a follow-up question? You look like you were thinking you had additional questions.
I'm just listening. No, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I wanted to make sure you had the opportunity. Are there any other questions or considerations regarding
Ms.
Ms.
Frimpong
Barr's
has her
report?
hand raised.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Ms. Frimpong.
Thank you. So a couple of questions, and Ms. Barr has spoken to some of the things that I was going to bring up, but just for clarification, so I believe in answering Ms. Dominowski's question, you talk about the difference as far as like how you triage the calls that are coming in through the fraud, waste, and abuse hotline. And you did give an example of, for example, substance abuse would not be an example of the fraud, waste, or abuse, and so that gets directed elsewhere.
Correct.
But just for clarification, could you provide examples of what would be an example of fraud, what would be an example of waste, what would be an example of abuse, just so that there's a better concrete examples of those, and then we have a better understanding of the investigations that are done related to that.
Mhm. Fraud, uh, a good example would be payroll fraud. Somebody's not putting their time in correctly, or somebody's altering documentation that shows that their timesheet, they put more hours on than they're supposed to. So that's an example of fraudulent activity related to payroll. Waste could be, potentially over ordering textbooks or things of that nature, that really don't need to be ordered because we have 100,000 in inventory and we ordered 100,000 more. And I'm just throwing out fictitious numbers there. Abuse primarily has to do mostly with like a conflict of interest, or somebody, using their position for personal gain. Does that help, Ms. Frempong?
It does, and like I said, I think it also, again, for the public, these clarifications, and again, as we talk about helping to better educate what it is that this office does.
Sure.
Can you also speak to, are there any, trying to figure out how to say this. So for example, with the county, are there any requests or concerns that might even come through the county that come to this hotline or come directly to your office that are investigated or have been investigated?
In the past, yes. We haven't had any for quite a while, but yes, we have in the past investigated uh, allegations that have come through the county's hotline, and then we interact with the county audit office to update them with respect to what we have found. But it has been quite a while since that has happened.
Okay, but that is also something, for example, when those issues come, again, like you said, through the county, it still does come back to us at BCPS to be investigated.
Sometimes, I can probably count on one or two hands the number that have come from them into our office, but that has happened. That has also happened with the Office of the Legislative Auditors, where they will reach out and say this came in through their hotline, and then when they come out and audit us, they'll follow up with respect to see how we handled the investigation. Even with the OIGE, they'll reach out to me for information related to something about BCPS that they've received through their hotline. Not necessarily that we do the investigation, but we, provide assistance as needed and as appropriate.
Okay, so we have had collaborations as well, then it sounds like, for these investigations.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, most definitely.
And then the other piece, and this is definitely something I'm interested in, and you've started speaking about it. So we do publish the reports online. They're available for our audits, but there is a difference between the audits and investigations. And because of the nature of the investigations by law, I guess that prevents us from publishing the reports in entirety, correct?
I believe they would have to, my understanding is that there would have to be redaction that would occur so that the person is not you would not be able to identify the person, basically. So
Okay.
sometimes a report would have to be maybe fully redacted, or redacted so much that you wouldn't even understand what was going on. But that's my understanding.
Okay, but it's possible, and it sounds like it's something you and your office will be open to, if there's a way to figure out how do we capture, I guess, maybe the pertinent information about this investigation was done, it was completed, and potentially, right, the fiscal impact, but we don't currently even publish the fiscal impact of our audits at this point either.
It depends on the audit, and sometimes it's very difficult to make that determination, but there have been audits that are published that do identify fiscal impact to the school system. The one that jumps to my mind immediately is the overpayment audit. I think that was in FY24. That's out there. That was over $800,000.
Right, right. And that was, I guess, more easily identifiable because it was overpayment. This was a huge indicator or a big example of where we had the fraud, like you spoke about, because with the hours and being paid for hours that actually weren't worked by those people. So, I mean, it sounds like there's still more things that we can do to improve as far as the reporting, as far as the type of work that's being done. But it sounds like, again, you and your office are open to that. So I appreciate that. You know, we'll be able to have those discussions and figure out some improvements. But again, based on the good work that you guys are already doing. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dominowski, I see your hand up.
Yeah, just real quick follow-up. So you said that the names need to be redacted because you have to give them the opportunity to appeal if there was a firing or, administrative leave or something like that. What are the cases where, there really wasn't a consequence to the employee? There's a couple of falsification of documents that were confirmed. How, can that be released? I mean, as long as the person hasn't been affected by it, or if no one is receiving a consequence, or there's no appeal process going on, why wouldn't we be able to release that information?
Yeah, and I'm sorry I don't know the direct answer to your question right now, Ms. Dominowski. I think it's probably going to be a work in progress to figure out what can and can't be released. I'm not a legal person, so I guess I don't know the answer to your question right now directly. My
Okay.
apologies.
That's okay. I just throwing it out there. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your questions. I think the theme here is the interest in seeing what we can possibly share within our limits. And I think Ms. Barr and her team are open to exploring that. So I appreciate that. So we'll move on to announcements. The next meeting of the Audit Committee will be on October 14, 2025 at 4:30 p.m. Ms. Jamison, I see your hand up.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Ms. Barr, you did not finish your FY25 year-end updates or the FY26 provisional audit committee meeting topics.
Right, Ms. Harvey, I wasn't sure if you wanted me to, it's not too lengthy, if you want me to quickly go through those. The proposed audit committee, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, please do.
Okay. So with the Q4 work plan and investigations update, that was presented as an informational item at the August 12th board meeting, was posted again in board docs for this meeting, and it provides information about our audit activities for the fiscal year July 1, 2024 through June 30, 2025. And again, if you had an opportunity to look at the report, it's the status of all FY25 audit projects, list of planned audits that were deferred, completion of unplanned projects, and audit reports issued during this period. And we completed 20 audit projects and deferred 8. Some of the reasons for deferral, as noted in the report, included processes that are annually audited by external agencies that had little or no findings. There was brand new staff in the office, and they really needed some time to get acquainted with new processes and procedures. The process considered for audit was transferred to a third-party vendor, and then other projects that came up or investigations throughout the year became more critical to complete. And as we mentioned, all audit reports issued as of June 30 have been posted to our webpage. Also included in the Q4 report is a summary of significant audit issues and an update of corrective measures taken by management. We talked a little bit about that earlier this evening. As of June 30, 37 issues were closed, 6 were closed where management accepted the risk, and 25 follow-ups were in progress. I wanted to make the committee aware that at the conclusion of each audit, we send a client survey to the applicable process owners. And we do that to enhance our quality and level of performance. We want their feedback. We want to know how they feel about the whole process. So last year, 17 surveys were sent and 15 responses were received. Survey responses were favorable and reflect positive results related to audit objectives, communication, timeliness, human relations, professionalism, and value added. We issued a report under separate cover related to the administration of the Fraud, Waste, and Abuse Hotline and investigations that were completed last year. Certain investigation reports were shared with the Baltimore County Office of the State's Attorney due to the nature of our investigation results. If you look at the investigation update, it breaks down the types of cases received, the status of cases, and a table that summarizes the status and result of internal audit investigation, as well as a summary of management investigations. Last year, we received 146 cases and closed 141. 43 cases, or 56%, were substantiated. 8 or 10% were unsubstantiated. 14 or 18% were inconclusive. And 12 or 16% had no reports issued. 18 cases remained open at June 30. And very quickly, the proposed audit committee topics, it's informational in nature. I just wanted to point out that it is a plan of what we would like to present, but there are certain conditions that might prevent us from doing it in the month that we would like. Projects become delayed for a variety of reasons beyond the control of our office. So any changes will be communicated to the committee officers at our agenda planning meetings. So now this concludes all those topics, Ms. Harvey. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barr. Now we are at announcements. The next meeting of the Audit Committee will be on October 14, 2025 at 4:30 p.m. Is there a motion to convene administrative function session at this time?
Excuse me, Ms. Harvey,
Yes.
are we able to ask questions about the audit?
Oh, I apologize, Ms. Dominowski. I apologize. I'm just trying to be a good steward of the time. However, please proceed.
I had one question, and it's just about the fiscal aspect of it. Sometime, don't quote me on the month, but it was sometime in March, I want to say, we did a budget line transfer of around 35 million to cover some costs in, I want to say it was special education. I forgot what the other one was, but and so like for 2025 budget. So we ended up going over our adopted 2020 budget by about 35 million. Can we attribute any of that to any of what was discovered in the 43 substantiated investigations that you covered, or?
I don't know the answer to your question. I've not done that comparison. I would have to defer to the budget folks to reply to that.
But was there any substantial fiscal implications from those 43 substantiated cases?
Well, again, I didn't track. We didn't track all of the dollar amounts associated with those investigations, and I would have to go back on a one-to-one basis. There might have been one or two that were, because it was one individual that took that amount or got paid that amount. It was pretty significant, but when you add it all up, I'm not sure that it would be significant enough to have been included in that the BLT. I just don't know the answer to your question. My apologies.
That's okay. I'm just trying to understand too. This is my first meeting, so I don't know how that is all it's all figured out. I guess it was more of like, because we don't really know the full extent of the investigation, what it was looked into when you talk about payroll or falsification of documents, or like how that would affect something. Like, I don't know what it affects at all, so I don't that's all. And so I have to ask, but
yeah, and I would again defer to our budget folks If there was any significant dollar amount as to how that's handled, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, I appreciate that, Ms. Farr. Thank you.
Sure.
Are there any other questions? Okay. I will now entertain a motion to convene an administrative function session.
So move Young.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Is there a second?
Second from Paul.
Thank you. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Ms. Dominowski,
Yes.
Ms. Frempong,
Yes.
Mr. McMillian,
Yes.
Ms. Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion passes. This meeting will now be adjourned. Committee members and appropriate staff, please leave this meeting and go into the Teams meeting scheduled for administrative function. Thank you.